Hello, sir. You are muted, sir. Yeah.
Can you see the slides now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can see.
I'm not able to put it into.
Go to slide share, sir.
I'm trying to do it.
So that you can minimize, sir. That. One more, that small box you can minimize, sir. There is one. And then.
Okay. So we'll go to hemodynamics. What do you mean by hemodynamics? Hello?
Yes, sir. Listening. Fine.
Okay, what do you mean by hemodynamics? Any one of you? Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes. Yes, sir.
What is hemodynamics?
Change in flow, blood flow and pressure waves during the cardiac cycle, sir.
Okay, very good. That is the. But it is nice to know how these two terms came. Hemo means. Hemo means blood. Dynamics.
Dynamics is flow. Change in
It's not flow. Dynamics is
dynamics of flow.
No. Dynamics is that branch of physics which deals with movement of objects. You might have studied about Newton's laws of motion 1, 2, 3 and all. All those come under dynamics. So hemodynamics deals with flow of blood. For flow of blood, you require certain. It needs a push, which is the pressure. When the blood flows, there is velocity, and also quantity of blood. So these three things that you look at when you look at hemodynamics: the flow, that is pattern of flow, the pressure, the pattern of flow, whether it is left to right shunt, right to left shunt, forward flow, reverse flow, all those things, and also you look at any oximetric data or oxygen difference because of the abnormal flow of blood, or any velocity of any change in the velocity of blood flow. For example, if there is an obstruction, then the velocity of blood flow can actually increase. So all these things will help us to diagnose a lot of lesions. So let us look at how does it help. Okay. The hemodynamics is how and how much blood flows. What is the pattern of blood flow and how much blood is flowing. And also you look at the pressure which drives the flow. You need a pressure to drive the flow. And the two chambers which actually generate pressure are the two ventricles. The right ventricle, which generates the pressure for flow of blood through the pulmonary system, and the left ventricle, which generates pressure for the flow of blood through the systemic circulation. I just mention few principles of hemodynamics, then I will give you the data to analyze. The blood always flows from an area of higher pressure to an area of lower pressure. That is something you should always understand. If the blood is to flow from left atrium to the left ventricle, the pressure in the left atrium should be higher than that of the left ventricle when the mitral valve is open, that is during diastole. Suppose I am saying an example. The patient is having a left ventricular diastolic pressure of 10, and then the left atrial pressure should be at least 10 or preferably 11 for the blood to flow from the left atrium to the left ventricle. Suddenly the pressure in the left ventricle due to some abnormality has gone up to 15 or 16. Then what should happen to the left atrial pressure? Any one of you?
Also increase.
It will increase.
It should immediately increase. Then only the blood can flow from the left atrium to the left ventricle. And when the left atrial pressure goes up, the pulmonary venous pressure goes up. When the pulmonary venous pressure goes up, pulmonary arterial pressure goes up. So it is a chain reaction. If the blood is to flow from one chamber to the another, or from one vessel to another vessel, the pressure in the proximal vessel should be, or in the chamber, should be higher than that of the distal chamber. So that you should always remember. When cardiac valves are fully open, there will not be any significant pressure gradient across the valve. But there can be a small gradient. What are the gradients which can be present across the mitral valve, across the tricuspid valve, across the aortic valve, and across the pulmonary valve? Any one of you? What is the normal upper level of gradient across the tricuspid valve? Any one of you?
1.9, sir.
Oh, it's about 1. 1.9 is abnormal. If it is 1, that's fine. If it is 2, is abnormal. So 1 to 1.2 is between 1 and 2 is borderline, but 1 is normal and 2 is abnormal. So depending upon the condition, you can always interpret. Mitral valve?
No gradient, sir, normally.
No, mitral valve has got a gradient which can be up to
3
2.
to 5.
Oh, it can be 2, sometimes up to 3 is also taken as normal, but 5 is abnormal. You can have a mean gradient across the mitral valve 2, across the tricuspid valve 1, across the peak gradient across the aortic valve.
Less than 20.
Usually less than 15.
Less than 10.
To,
Less than 10.
Usually around 10 to 12 is taken as normal, and when it goes about 15, you have to suspect that there may be mild degree of aortic stenosis. Pulmonary valve?
Less than 10 again.
It's less than, it's about 5 to 7. So these are the mild gradient across the valves. It can be there. This is because of the blood flow. But when the gradient exceeds this, usually it occurs. What are the conditions? We'll go to the next one. When the valve becomes stenotic, there will be a pressure gradient across the valve. For the blood to flow across a stenosed valve, there is the need of increase in the velocity, so that the same quantity of blood can flow across the stenosed valve as it would have happened in the normal valve. The pressure gradient across the valve is proportional to the degree of stenosis, provided the flow remains the same. That you should always remember, that there can be gradient across a valve, 1 because of the stenosis, and 2 because of the increased flow across the valve. Gradient across the stenosed valve will be decided also by flow across the valve. Higher the flow, higher the gradient. Can you tell me one occasion where, because of the increased flow, there can be gradient across the pulmonary valve?
AST, sir.
AST. In AST, there can be, people have described even up to gradient up to 40 millimeters of mercury in a perfectly normal pulmonary valve with a very high flow across the valve. And across the aortic valve?
Hyperdynamic states, then aortic regurgitation.
Aortic regurgitation, not hyperdynamic states. In hyperdynamic state, actually, there is no increased flow across the valve. Actually, what happens is that there is the maximum flow occurs in the early part of the systole. It is quickly finished. In hyperdynamic circulation, because of the low resistance of the systemic pressure, systemic venous pressure, systemic resistance is very low, and because of that, the ejection is very fast in the early part of systole. That is what is happening in hyperdynamic circulation. But in a patient with significant aortic regurgitation, there can be a significant increase in the stroke volume, and that can result in gradient across the aortic valve. Equalization of pressure across any communication can occur only if the opening is non-obstructive. So if you find that there is no gradient between left atrium and the right atrium in a patient with ASD, that obviously means that the opening is non-obstructive. If there is an obstructive or a restrictive ASD, there can be a pressure gradient. It applies to other orifices also. Fick's principle is used to calculate the cardiac output. The cardiac output in liters per minute is obtained by the formula oxygen consumption per minute divided by arteriovenous oxygen difference in liters per liter. So oxygen consumption per minute divided by artery venous oxygen difference per liter will give you the cardiac output in liters per minute. Cardiac output can also be calculated from the formula. Cardiac output is stroke volume into heart rate. Left to right shunt is detected by significant oxygen step up in a particular right side chamber. If there is a oxygen step up in right atrium, you will diagnose that there is a shunt coming to the right atrium. From oxygenated blood is reaching the right atrium. If you find there is a step up at the ventricular level, then you will diagnose that there is a oxygenated blood coming to the right ventricle. And if there is a step up at the pulmonary artery level, then obviously you know there is a oxygenated blood is reaching the pulmonary artery. So what is the degree of step up required to diagnose a shunt at the RA level, at the RB level, and at the pulmonary artery level? Anyone of you?
More than 5, more than 7, more than 5. At any level, more than 7.
Beg your pardon?
More than 7 from
Where?
And
In
more
which-
than 5.
More than 5 at more than 7 in which chamber?
More than 7 at
More
REA,
than
SVC to REA level, and more than 5 at ventricular level and aortic level.
And aortic level, which one? Why 5? Is it 5 at the pulmonary artery level?
5, sir. Ventricular and great vessel levels, it's 5, sir.
Is it a single sample or multiple samples?
Multiple samples.
Multiple samples.
Atrial level, it is multiple samples, but ventricular and aortic levels, it can be less samples.
No. But there's a bit of a confusion. But anyhow, at the atrial level, anywhere between 7 to 10 multiple samples. Then at the ventricular level, multiple sample, it should be 7. Multiple sample 5. And pulmonary artery level, multiple sample 5. But if it is single sample at the ventricular level, in the atrial level, it should be 10 to 11. At the ventricular level, 7. But on the arterial, on the pulmonary artery level, whether it is single or multiple, it is the same. So pulmonary artery, multiple or single, same 5% oxygen saturation change. In the ventricular level, it is single sample 7, multiple samples 5, and in the atrial side, multiple samples 7 and single 10. Okay, right left shunt is detected by significant oxygen step up in the particular left side, step down in the particular left side chamber. What should be the level of desaturation to diagnose right left shunt?
2%.
More than
Yes.
3.
3 or more, more than 2, 3 or more than 2. Bidirectional shunt is detected by both the above observation. If you get oxygen step up as well as step down, then you know there is a bidirectional shunt. When you analyze the pressure data, it should be done in a systematic manner. The following points are to be analyzed. 1. As soon as you see a pressure in a chamber or a vessel, you should know whether the pressures in the chamber or vessels are normal, whether the pressure is normal. 2. When you are seeing a gradient across, when you are seeing between the two, pressure between two chambers, is there a gradient across the valve when that particular valve is open? For example, in a tricuspid valve during diastole, the pressure gradient across the tricuspid valve between the right atrium and the right ventricle should be at the most 1, and usually it is about 0, or it may at the most 1. So there should not be any gradient across the valve. Are there any abnormal waves or any wave is absent? For example, in atrial fibrillation, A wave may be absent. In acute mitral regurgitation or tricuspid regurgitation, you can see very prominent V waves in the left atrium or in the right atrium. So abnormal waves also help us to diagnose the hemodynamic abnormality. Are there abnormal equalization of pressure between chambers? Can any one of you tell me few conditions where there can be abnormal equalization of pressure which will help you to diagnose? Any one of you?
Top
Pericarditis.
In top, which are the pressures which are open or equal?
RV, LV and aortic.
Diastolic equalization of pressure in all the 4 chambers.
Diastolic.
Eh? Somebody said tetralogy of Fallot. The answer is not complete.
Systolic equalization of RV, LV and iota, sir.
Yeah, we should say systolic pressure equalization. You initially said equalization of RV, LV and aortic pressures, but that's not enough. You have to say systolic pressure equalization of RV, LV and aortic pressures. 1, 2. Another example, equalization of pressures.
Constrictive pericarditis.
Constrictive pressure.
CCP.
It is in, okay, there is a, which pressure is equalized?
Diastolic.
Diastolic pressure will be equal.
Diastolic.
May not be equal. The minimum, the difference between diastolic pressure between among all these 4 chambers will be less than
5
Less
millimeters.
than 5.
Less than 5.
less than 5. It can be, there can be minor difference, but the difference will be less than 5 millimeters of mercury. Okay. One more example.
Cardiac transfer.
Yes.
EDF. I think like a complex.
What else? What about what about Eisenmenger syndrome? BSD Eisenmenger.
Complex, yes, sir.
Yeah, what
Systolic
is it?
equalization of LV, RV, iota and pulmonary artery.
Yes. So there in Eisenmenger BSD, there will be systolic pressure equalization of LV, RV, aorta and the pulmonary artery. And in ASD, large ASD,
RA and LA.
LA and RA.
Diastolic pressures are equal, then correspondingly diastolic pressures of RV and LV also will be the same, because all the pressures are equal. So, right, okay. Now, are the you must always look at, are the oxygen saturations in various cardiac chambers normal? Is there a step up of oxygen saturation in any chamber or vessel, or is there a step down of oxygen saturation in any chamber or vessel? And all these things, you know, left to right shunt and right to left shunt, they are calculated by looking at the QP to QS ratio. Systemic arteriovenous oxygen difference is proportional to pulmonary arteriovenous oxygen difference. And applying this formula, QP can be calculated by rewriting the formula: systemic arteriovenous oxygen difference multiplied by the systemic flow, which we know by looking at the cardiac output, divided by pulmonary arteriovenous difference will give you the pulmonary blood flow. So the formula for calculating the pulmonary blood flow is equal to systemic arteriovenous oxygen difference multiplied by systemic blood flow divided by pulmonary arteriovenous oxygen difference. That will give you the pulmonary blood flow. Now, bidirectional shunt calculation. How will you calculate the bidirectional shunt? Calculate the pulmonary blood flow and the systemic blood flow as I have already mentioned. Then calculate the effective pulmonary blood flow, which is equal to effective systemic blood flow, applying the following formula. Effective pulmonary blood flow is equal to effective systemic blood flow. What do you mean by effective pulmonary blood flow or effective systemic blood flow? Any one of you?
It is the amount of blood going for the lungs, the amount of blood from the systemic circulation going to the lungs for getting oxygenated.
Yes. The amount of blood which is getting oxygenated, and also the amount of blood which is taking part in the oxygen delivery, which both are equal. So the first one, the amount of blood which is getting oxygenated is the effective pulmonary blood flow, and the same quantity of blood will be taking part in the oxygen delivery to the peripheral tissues, which is the effective systemic blood flow. And oxygen effective pulmonary blood flow, which is equal to effective systemic blood flow, is calculated from the formula: oxygen consumption per minute divided by pulmonary venous minus mixed systemic venous saturation. That will give rise to the effective pulmonary blood flow. The left to right shunt is calculated from the formula pulmonary blood flow minus effective pulmonary blood flow, and right to left shunt is calculated from the formula systemic blood flow minus effective systemic blood flow. So applying all these principles, we should be able to analyze the hemodynamic data. Okay, now what is pulmonary vascular resistance? Pulmonary vascular resistance is any one of you? How do you calculate pulmonary vascular resistance?
Mean pulmonary artery pressure minus pulmonary capillary wedge pressure divided by QP, sir.
Not correct. You had a slight modification. Is it Sarojam? What is your name?
So Pragati, sir.
Pragati, okay. Your formula is not correct.
Minus LA pressure, sir.
Yeah, that's correct. That's the correct answer. Pulmonary, the pulmonary mean pressure minus left atrial pressure divided by pulmonary blood flow. Why did I correct you? Can you tell me one condition where pulmonary artery wedge pressure cannot be used?
Pulmonary vein stenosis.
Yes, when there is a vein occlusive disease, then that formula cannot apply. But all practical purposes, you are right, Prakriti, that's correct. But we want to be perfect, then you should say pressure drop, mean pulmonary artery pressure minus left atrial pressure divided by pulmonary blood flow. That is the correct answer. For practical purposes, we always make use of the pulmonary arterial wedge pressure. That is because vein occlusive disease is extremely uncommon. And so, and also we will not be able to enter the left atrium always. So we always make use of the pulmonary arterial wedge pressure tracing. Very good. Pulmonary venous resistance index is calculated from the formula. Pulmonary venous resistance, pulmonary vascular resistance is calculated from the formula. Pulmonary vascular resistance calculated multiplied by body surface area. Here is one situation when you calculate the index, you multiply it with body surface area. In all other situations, when you are calculating the index, you actually divide the value by the body surface area. Here it is you multiply it with the body surface area. Okay, now I will show a few hemodynamic data. We'll start with the one volunteer. Somebody who is volunteering, can I get the name? One of you.
Okay, sir, I will
Okay,
see.
Pragati, try.
Arun.
Okay. She has been yesterday. She
I will take them.
presented very well. Let Pragati try. Okay.
Yes.
Pragati, you analyze this data.
So 3 months male child.
Okay.
Pressure data, sir. RA A is 8, B is 9, and mean is 7.5, sir. It's slightly elevated.
Slightly elevated. And not only that. See, normally in right atrium, A wave is slightly more prominent, or definitely not less than V wave in the right atrium. Here the V is slightly taller than A wave.
A wave, sir.
So that's slightly abnormal. So you have to think that possibility whether it could be some valve leak or something is there or not. Yes.
Yes. RV systolic it is 60 and diastolic 8, sir. So there is no obstruction across the tricuspid valve.
Very good.
And PA.
No, you should mention right here. RV systolic pressure is?
Pressure is elevated, sir.
RV diastolic pressure?
Diastolic pressure is normal, sir.
No, upper limit of normal. Usually it is around 5 to 8, but 8 is can be taken as the upper limit of normal. Okay, right, very good. Yes. PA pressure?
PA systolic pressure is 60, sir. And diastolic is 25 and mean is 40.
Okay.
So there is no obstruction across pulmonary valve.
Very good.
And there is a slight elevation of mean and diastolic pressure, sir. Pulmonary artery diastolic and mean.
Yes, there is a moderate elevation of the pulmonary artery pressure. Here, when it goes, systolic pressure goes above 50, you can modify it as include that is a moderate elevation. So there is a moderate elevation of the pulmonary artery pressure. Very good. Yes.
And LA A wave is 18, sir, and B wave is 23, and mean is 20, sir. It is elevated, sir.
Okay. Very good. Yes.
And LV it is
Normally, which wave is taller in left atrium? Is it the
V wave, sir. V wave, sir.
What is the reason?
Because LA is less compliant, sir, when compared to RA.
Yes, LA is less compliant, and hence when there is a flow of blood coming to the left atrium, there is a greater pressure rise, and that is why V wave can be slightly more prominent than the A wave in left atrium. Very good. Yes.
And LV it is 85 systolic and 18 diastolic, sir. So there is no obstruction across LA and LV, sir. Mitral valve. There is no obstruction across mitral valve, and LV and diastolic pressure is elevated.
Okay, very good. Yes.
And femoral artery, it is 90 systolic and 50 diastolic, sir.
Okay, right, very good.
There is no obstruction, no significant obstruction across aortic valve also.
Okay, so what are the abnormalities that you will see in the pressure data?
Sir, LV and diastolic pressure is elevated, sir.
Very good.
And LV systolic pressure is low. So overall cardiac output is also low.
Oh, 3-month-old child, 85, 90, you can still take it as maybe it can be passed off as normal. So usually 3-month-old child can have 90 millimeters can be still passed off as normal. You should have mentioned there is a elevation of the RV pressure. The pressure has not regressed. Normally by 3 months there should be a regression of the pulmonary artery pressure, but it has not happened. Okay, right? Yes. Now let's look at the oximetry data.
Sir, oximetry SVC saturation is 70 and IVC is 72. Mid right atrium it is 71 and low right atrium it is 70. RV inflow it is 71, sir. RV outflow it is 70. Pulmonary artery 76. LA, LV and femoral artery it is 94, sir. There is desaturation at LA, sir.
Is there a oxygen step up anywhere?
Pulmonary artery level there is, yes, greater than 5, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so there is a step up at the pulmonary artery level, and also there is a desaturation in the LA, LV, femoral artery. So how are you going to explain?
Shunt at the great arterial level, sir.
Shunt at the great artery level, very good. So there is a left to right shunt at the great artery level, pulmonary artery. So it could be what could be the condition?
PDA.
PDA. So then there is a LA, LV, femoral artery desaturation. What is your explanation?
So there is a right to left shunt at the level of atrial.
Why did you say?
Desaturation at the level of LA, sir.
That is not enough. What I told you is that blood can flow from an area of higher pressure to an area of
low pressure. Yes.
low pressure. So can it flow from right atrium to left? What is the right atrial pressure?
Right atrium is at a lower pressure.
Significantly lower pressure. So how can you have a flow from right atrium to left atrium?
So bidirectional shunt, sir.
How can there be bidirectional shunt of Prakriti? Because left atrium is A18, V23 and mean of 20, while right atrium is A8, V9 and mean of 7.5. Obviously meaning that the blood cannot flow from right atrium to left atrium. So significantly higher pressure.
So this is PDA with hyperkinetic PCH with the LRTI.
PDA with patient in heart failure, sir.
Yeah, heart failure. That's the correct answer. Because see, you look at the left atrial pressure is almost 20. So a patient may be having pulmonary congestion and maybe having even interstitial edema. More than 18 can have interstitial edema, and that may be the reason for desaturation. Did you get the point, Praviti?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, because the left atrial pressure is significantly higher than the right atrial pressure, and hence you cannot say that there is a right-left shunt.
Yes.
So when you look at the data, you should analyze thoroughly. I agree with you that there is a desaturation in the left atrium, LV and femoral artery, but that cannot be explained by right-left shunt. It may be because of the lack of oxygenation in the lung, maybe due to lung infection, or it may be due to pulmonary congestion. Whatever may be the reason, the desaturation is occurring at the pulmonary parenchymal level. Okay, right, good.
Yes.
Next one, who is the next volunteer?
Sir, so this one, it is a PDA with persistence of pulmonary persistence of pressure and plus heart failure. The previous
because
one.
Because in patients with normally, what is the pattern of regression of pulmonary vascular resistance? What is your name?
Sunil.
Sunil, what is the normal pattern of what are you doing? Are you doing DM or DNB?
Sir, DNB.
Where?
Sir, Mumbai Holy Family.
Mumbai Holy Family. Oh, you are with Brian Pindo.
Sir. Yes, sir.
So in say, what is the normal pattern or regression of the pulmonary vascular resistance? What is the normal pattern of
50% decreases in the pulmonary pressure with the first breath itself.
Yeah.
And then
50%
gradually
50% of the pulmonary vascular resistance will drop as soon as the child takes the first breath. Why it is so?
sir, because the alveoli open up, the blood flow into the alveoli starts that's why.
Yeah, because as soon as the child takes first breath in, all the pulmonary arterioles, everything opens up, and that will cause a sudden drop in the pulmonary vascular resistance and drops to 50%. And then rest, then remaining.
It will reach the adult value by 6 to 8 weeks.
Sir, next 1 to 2 months, it further decreases the pulmonary vascular resistance.
No, it decreases by about 2 weeks. It does not. Usually, the pressure drops to the pulmonary vascular resistance become almost adult pattern by around 2 weeks, maybe a little more than that, 2 to 3 weeks, not months. Usually, it happens around by 2 weeks. What happens in a patient with a left to right shunt?
It takes about 4 to 6 weeks to regress, sir.
Now, what happens when the child takes first breath? Does it drop to 50%? Does the pulmonary vascular resistance drop by 50% in a patient having VSD or PDA?
No, sir, it doesn't drop.
Why?
Because such a large shunt will lead to elastic recoil. There will be to accommodate such a large shunt, pulmonary arteries will expand, and then there will be elastic recoil, which will make the pressure drop not so high.
Okay, so that's important, because see, one thing you should remember is that no child can survive unless there is an obstruction when there is a right to left shunt. Sorry, left to right shunt. So in a patient of VSD, the obstruction can be at the VSD level, small VSD, or it can be at the RV outflow level, RV outflow obstruction. These two areas are not obstructed at all, large VSD and there is no RV outflow obstruction, then there has to be some obstruction in the pulmonary vasculature for the child to survive. Otherwise, large volume of blood will come to the left side of the heart and patient will immediately go in for left heart failure and the child may die. So it is a protective phenomenon. When large volume of blood is coming onto the pulmonary vasculature, there is a vascular recoil, which is known as Bailey's phenomenon. In Bailey's phenomenon, there is a vascular recoil, and that will keep the pulmonary vascular pressure fall to, it will restrict the pulmonary vascular pressure fall, and hence the shunt also will be restricted. So the first breath, there is practically, there is some drop, but will not be half the will not fall by half, and the fall in pressure to normal may not take place at all in a large shunt, but if at all, it take over a period of few months. So it may take about 1 to 2 months before the pulmonary vascular resistance drops significantly. Many patients with the large shunt, the pulmonary vascular resistance may not reach the adult level at all. So here, this patient may be having a large shunt across the PDA, and the shunt is restricted by the lack of reduction in the pulmonary vascular resistance. That is why the pressure is remaining elevated in this patient. Is it clear? Any doubt? Any doubt?
No, sir.
Okay, right. So we'll go to next patient, and next one who is planning to discuss. Sunil, would you try? Okay.
Okay, sir.
Sunil.
Sir, a 12-year-old female. The RA pressure, sir, V is more than A, and the mean pressure is high. RV pressure is 120 systolic and 9 diastolic. So RV pressure is same as the LV pressure of 120.
No. You have read about RV inflow pressure 120/90. Now, Nayan, you should now mention about, is there a gradient across the tricuspid valve?
Sir, no gradient across the tricuspid valve.
Because if you take the A wave, then the A wave and the RV and diastolic pressures are the same, so you can consider that there is no gradient. And
Yes, sir.
absolute pressures of the RV, is it normal or elevated?
Sorry, sir.
Absolute RV pressures, are they normal, elevated, decreased? What is the level of the RV inflow pressure?
Elevated. Elevated, sir.
Yeah, RV
Significantly
elevated, significantly elevated. And what about the RV and diastolic pressure?
That is slightly high, sir.
Yeah, it's elevated. Upper
Yes,
limit
sir.
of normal is 8. Anything above 8 is abnormal. So 9 means there is an elevation of the RV and diastolic pressure. Okay, right. Then what else?
Sir, pulmonary artery 25.
Something more in between.
Sir, RV outflow pressure is 50 by 8. So there is a gradient between the RV inflow and RV outflow pressure.
Very good. Yes.
Yes. Pulmonary artery pressure 25 by 10. That is normal. And pulmonary.
No, you have to have an interpretation. Is there a gradient between the RV outflow and PA?
No gradient between the RV outflow and the pulmonary artery.
Sure?
Gradient,
There is a gradient of 25. Gradient of 25 from RV outflow to PA.
Okay.
50 and 25. So gradient is there.
Okay. Then?
And pulmonary pressure as such is normal. And pulmonary artery wedge pressure is mean of 8. And LA pressure.
You have to mention whether it is normal or not.
Yes, sir. Normal.
Okay, right. Very good. Yes.
LA pressure is normal, and V as normally in LA, V is more than A. Here it is reverse.
Slightly less. Sometimes, see, it is not an absolute principle that it should be that way, but there can be, mostly it is equal to or slightly more than the A way, but it can be this way also, but okay, I won't give too much importance to that. Yes, okay.
Yes, sir.
Normal. Okay, right.
Aorta, sir, 120 by 75 and mean of 90, so that is normal.
Okay.
And LP, sir, 120 by 8, so that is also normal, sir.
Okay.
And so we have, sir, RV inflow and LV inflow pressure, RV systolic and inflow and LV systolic pressures are equal. So there is a non-restrictive connection, a defect between the RV inflow and the LV. And
no. Just because two pressures are equal, you cannot draw that conclusion. You can say that there is a systolic pressure is equal in RV, aorta, and left ventricle. And on top of that, you are getting a gradient across RV inflow and outflow, and from RV outflow to pulmonary artery. These features make you suspect that the patient may be having. These features make you suspect that patient may be having.
Of
DCRV.
Go for simple one. There is an outflow obstruction both at the level of the infundibulum as well as at the pulmonary valve level. That both levels you should always first go for tetralogy of Fallot. So here you have to suspect tetralogy of Fallot, and then you should look at the oxygen data whether it supports. Okay, right? Yes.
Sir. SVC is 55 and 54. IVC it is 66.
Okay.
That is more in IVC, the oxygen.
There is some oxygen saturation actually in IVC is slightly comparatively significantly higher than SVC. Normally it is definitely higher. Why the IVC oxygen saturation is higher?
Sir, splanchnic circulation, the extraction by the kidneys and the intestines is less compared to the upper body.
When the patient is lying in the cath lab, the oxygen extraction of the splanchnic area, especially that of the kidney, is extremely low. So
yes, sir.
So that is why you get a higher oxygen saturation in IVC. Okay, right?
Yes, sir. So RA, IVC pressure, RA pressure.
Oximetry data, oxygen saturation.
Sorry,
No,
oxygen, oxygen at the IVC and SVC combined will be getting same to the RA oxygen, same as RV oxygen, same as pulmonary artery oxygen. No difference. Then pulmonary artery wedge, the oxygen is 100, so that is normal. And from there, the LA, there is a step down of 10. From 100, it has gone to 90. And further, there is a step down from LA to LV of 8.
Okay.
And LV to aorta it's only 2, so that is okay. So there is a step down at LA level and again at LV level.
Okay, very good. Yes. So what is your interpretation? What is your diagnosis?
Sir, can we call it pentology of Fallot, sir?
Yes, well, no, you should describe it that there is evidence to suspect that there is a VSD with right left shunt, ASD with right left shunt, along with other features which make you suspect that patient may be having tetralogy of Fallot with an atrial septal defect, which is also called pentology of Fallot.
Pentology of Fallot. Yes, sir.
First, you should say tetralogy of Fallot with the ASD, and then you say this can be named as pentology of Fallot.
Yes, sir.
What is the formula for calculating the systemic blood flow? In this patient? How will you calculate the systemic blood flow?
Don't know, sir.
You don't know how to calculate the systemic blood flow? Any one of you, Pragati or Sarojam? Sarojam. Can you calculate the systemic blood flow? You just tell the formula.
Sir,
Yes, yes.
Sir, it will be oxygen consumption divided by oxygen systemic arterial oxygen content minus mixed venous oxygen content.
Okay, you tell me that. The formula is 180. You tell.
So the oxygen,
tell the numbers.
180 divided by 1.34 multiplied by 10 multiplied by 17.
Okay.
We'll open the bracket and it will be arterial will be 0.8 minus 0.8 minus mixed venous, which will be around 3, 10, 12.
But it will be 0.8.
Sir, sorry, it will be 1, sir. Sorry, 1. 1 minus.
What is 1? I couldn't get you.
The pulmonary artery wedge is 1.
Oh, it's aortic saturation.
No, why do you go for
It is aorta minus RS, sir. Aorta minus RS.
Minus mixed venous sample.
Ideally, when you are using aorta, it is mixed venous. Ideally, it is better to take pulmonary artery venous saturation, provided there is no shunt coming at any of these levels. So it should be.
It should be aortic, right, sir?
So it is 80.
0.8 minus mixed venous.
What do you mean by 0.8?
80 by 100, sir. He mean as
80 by 100, sir. 80 by 100.
Why do you want to go for 80 by 100?
Yes, sir.
Why do you want to go for 80 by 100?
Sir, because we are taking the formulas in milligram per deciliter. We have taken 1.34 multiplied by 10. So our value will be the units will be converted in that.
No. Why do you want to multiply please let me know why do you want to cut or multiply all these multiplications 17 into 10 into 1.34 and all.
This is the oxygen carrying capacity, sir. In the iota minus oxygen carrying capacity, oxygen which is carried by iota minus oxygen which is carried in the mixed venous, sir.
No. I asked you a question. You have written 17 multiplied by 1.34 multiplied by 10.
Yes.
What is it for? You just tell me what is the
1 gram of hemoglobin carries 1.34 milligram of oxygen, sir.
Okay, right. So you are trying to find out what will be the oxygen content
of the arterial blood.
Then why do you want to multiply by 10?
So to multiply by 10, we want to convert it from gram per deciliter to gram per liter, sir.
Yes, you want to make it per liter. So yes, that will give you the oxygen content of the
arterial blood. Okay, minus right, yes, oxygen content of the mixed venous sample.
No, that will not give you oxygen content of the. You need not go for that. You can take up the arterial oxygen difference.
Yes, sir.
What is arterial oxygen difference? What is
sir, for that we need mixed venous oxygen sample, sir.
So it is. You can take from here. It's available.
Yes, sir.
So arterial oxygen saturation is 80 minus
3 SVC plus 1 IVC divided by 4.
No. That is required only when you are thinking there is a shunt coming to the right atrium. Otherwise, you take the pulmonary artery saturation. That will give you the mixed venous saturation.
Okay, 60, sir. So 80 minus 60, sir.
So that will be
0.2, sir. 2 by 100.
20 by 0.2. 0.2. Okay, if you want to say 0.2, otherwise you can put it as 20 divided by 100.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. So if you want to put it as 0.2, that should be fine. Okay. So that is the formula. Very good. Okay. Right. Yes.
So won't we add the dissolved oxygen, sir?
Beg your pardon? We usually don't do it. Ideally, if you want, you can add. I think it's about 1 or 1.2 ml as a dissolved oxygen. We usually don't do it because we are actually measuring the oxygen saturation, which may not reflect the dissolved oxygen. So we are calculating only the saturation. So that may not reflect the dissolved oxygen. So the calculation, the amount of oxygen carried by hemoglobin, I think it should be fine.
Sir, some doubts were there, sir. Sir, this ASD is there, sir. If ASD is there, the RA and LA pressure should be equal, no, sir?
If they are not equal, what is the reason?
Restrictive ASD.
That obviously means that there is a restrictive ASD, not a large ASD. There is a restrictive ASD. Yeah, there is a minor difference. Yes, that's a restrictive ASD.
Okay, and it is a right to left shunt, sir. That's why the desaturation.
So that is why, because right atrial pressure is higher than that of the left atrial pressure.
Okay, sir. And yes, sir. Sir, why the gradient between RV inflow and outflow, sir?
Anybody? Yesterday answered the question. Can you explain that?
Infundibular stenosis, sir.
Infundibular stenosis.
Infundibulum and valve level.
There is a stenosis at 2 levels, at the level of infundibulum, as also at the level of the pulmonary valve.
Pulmonary. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sir, DCRV, what will happen, sir, in this
DCRV, first of all, where is Prakriti? Prakriti, would you like to answer that question?
There will be no desaturation.
Still pressure.
Proximal high pressure chamber will be there, sir.
So in DCRV, the grade desaturation node is decided by the.
If at all there is accompanying VSD, then only desaturation occurs. Otherwise, there won't be desaturation.
If there is a VSD, depends upon where is the VSD. In
VSD is the distal chamber.
Very often in the distal chamber. In the distal chamber, and the flow of blood is from LV to RV. The distal chamber will have a lower pressure, and in a double chamber right ventricle, the blood will be mostly flowing from LV to RV. If the communication is in the muscular portion, which could be in the inflow region, then it can be sometimes from RV to NV. Otherwise, it is usually from the LV to RV. And usually the pulmonary outflow obstruction, the RV outflow obstruction and pulmonary valve obstruction is not a common feature of double chambered right ventricle. So this hemodynamic data, there is nothing, no evidence of a double chambered right ventricle. This goes classically for tetralogy of Fallot. Sometimes you can have a difficulty whether it can be sometimes a double outed right ventricle, but then double outed right ventricle RV outflow obstruction is very uncommon. So all put together, I would consider that this is almost a classical hemodynamic data of tetralogy of Fallot with an atrial septal defect, with the right left shunt at the atrial septal defect level.
Okay, sir.
Any volunteers? Somebody would like to? Nikhil?
Yeah, sir. I'll do so. Sir, 12-year-old female, sir. So RA
It's
pressure.
not 12-year-old. It's 25-year-old female.
Oh, sorry, sir. In my laptop, it is coming late. Sorry, sir. Now I can see. Sir, 25-year-old female. Here are the pressures. RA is 10, sir, which is higher, sir. V is 8, which is above normal. Then
V up to 8 is normal. Actually, A and V in the RV can be up to 8. So that can be positive as normal, but A is elevated. Yes.
Yes, sir. A is elevated. Then there RV pressure is 40 by 6. So there is a gradient of only 4, sir.
Okay. So there is a gradient across the
tricuspid valve, which is 4, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Then RV pressure systolic is slightly higher, sir. 45, sir.
Okay.
Then coming to PA. Yeah, sir. Then PA pressure 45, sir, by 20. So there is no obstruction between RV and PA.
Okay, very good.
Diastolic is okay, sir. Slightly above normal, like 20, sir. PA diastolic pressure.
Not slightly. What is the normal PA diastolic pressure?
So 10.
Oh, it's around 10. At the
10,
most,
yeah.
What is the normal PA systolic pressure?
PA systolic 25, sir.
Yeah, you should 25. Some people it can go up to 30. And what is the main pressure?
Mean pressure, for according to definition, it should 20, sir. Below 20.
18 to 20.
So it is. Yes. So it is. Yes, sir. It is elevated, sir. Coming to wedge pressure, A is elevated, sir. V is also elevated, and LV LV systolic pressure is higher, sir, 130, and end diastolic is 6. There is a gradient between. Means if we take the wedge pressure as LA pressure, sir, there is a gradient, sir, between LA and LV, sir.
Okay.
Of about 10. Then aorta systolic is normal, sir, 105, and diastolic is also normal, 75, sir.
Okay.
Then so basically there is a mild pH.
Is there a gradient?
Sir?
Is there a gradient?
Yeah, sir. 25 is a gradient, sir. So yes, sir. So should I interpret, sir, or should I go first to oximetry?
Oh, if you want, you can go, but you can pressure data. What are the abnormalities?
Sir, there is a RA-RV, there is a mild gradient, sir, of 4. Okay. Then coming to there is a mild pH also is there, sir.
Okay.
There is a stenosis between LA to LV, sir.
Mitral valve, that's an obstruction. Yes, very good.
Yes, mitral valve obstructions, and then there is a 25 gradient between LV and aorta. Oh, so that is also mild obstruction is there, sir.
Okay, right.
So that is there.
Okay, oximetry data.
Oximetry PA saturation is 72, aorta is 96, which is normal, sir.
Okay. So
yes.
So what is your diagnosis?
So mild pH, mild AS, moderate MS, RA, LA.
Stenosis. There is mild aortic stenosis.
Is it a
mild elevation of the pulmonary artery pressure and tricuspid valve?
Tricuspid valve mild obstruction is there, sir.
That's mild tricuspid stenosis. So
Yes,
that's
sir.
what
So
aortic
it's a Lutem.
Eh?
Can it be a Lutembacher, sir?
Lutembacher. What do you mean by Lutembacher? Lutembacher can be there only if there is an.
Oh, there oximetry. Sorry, sir. Sorry. So there is a moderate MS, sir, mild AS, mild TS, sir, and mild PH, sir.
There is no evidence of Lutembacher here.
No, sorry, sir. Oximetry is not here.
Okay. Yes. By looking at the oximetric data of PA and aorta, can you make a comment about the cardiac output? What do you think about the cardiac output? Is it normal, increased, decreased?
It is increased, sir.
Why do you say it's increased?
Oxygen consumption is normally 120. It is higher actually. Cardiac output.
What is the normal in a normal person with a normal hemoglobin? What is the artery to pulmonary artery to aorta pressure? Pulmonary artery aorta oxygen saturation. If you are told that you can have only one oximetry data and you have to give a comment about the cardiac output, what oximetry data you will use?
SVC saturation.
What? SVC?
Pulmonary artery.
SVC saturation, sir.
Pulmonary.
Yes, it's pulmonary artery. If you are given option to look at only one oximetry data, then you should ask for pulmonary artery oxygen saturation. If it lies between 70 to 75, you can take it granted that most likely cardiac output is usually around 25. The pressure, the oximetry data, the oxygen saturation difference between the aorta and the pulmonary artery in a normal person will be around 25. So if the pulmonary artery oxygen saturation is around 75, then you can be sure that the patient is having a normal cardiac output.
Normal
So
cardiac
here,
output.
so here the arterial oxygen difference. Sorry, the aorta to pulmonary artery oxygen saturation difference is 24. So it can be passed off as normal cardiac output.
Yes. Okay.
What is the next person available? Anybody? Any volunteers? Sarojam, you didn't interpret any oximetry data. Why can't you try? Did you do one?
Actually, I am unable to see the data. It is previous one showing 12 female.
Sir, in if
it is not
network is poor, sir. Sir, if network is poor, sir, it will come late, sir. Sir, if network is poor, it will come late, sir. That's
okay.
Yes,
so then somebody else can interpret. Any volunteers? Who has got this next hemodynamic data on their laptop? Anybody?
12-year-old female, sir.
Okay. May I know your name, please?
Cheryl, sir.
Cheryl. Okay. Where are you from?
From Fortis, Bangalore, sir.
Okay, right. Fortis, Bangalore. Okay, yeah. Yes.
12-year-old female, sir. RA pressure A is 8, B is 8, and mean pressure is 8. It's higher limit of normal.
Okay.
RV pressure is 120 by 8. There's no gradient between RA and RV. RV systolic pressure is high in the inflow, 120. Outflow it is 58 by 8. There's no gradient in between. There is a gradient between RV inflow and outflow, systolic gradient of around 60.
Okay.
EA pressure is 60 by 20.
Okay.
There's no gradient between RV and PA.
Okay. RV outflow and PA, there is no gradient. Okay, very good. Yes.
PA systolic pressure is elevated.
Oh, you have to mention that PA pressure is elevated, moderate elevation of the pulmonary artery pressure. Yes.
Yes, sir. And mean pulmonary artery pressure is also elevated. Diastolic pulmonary artery pressure is also elevated.
Yes.
And pulmonary capillary wedge pressure is A is 9, B is 8. It's upper limit. It's normal.
Okay.
LV
upper limit. Why did you say upper limit? What is the normal? What is upper limit of pulmonary artery pressure?
10 to 15.
Oh, it can go up to 12. So this is normal. Yes. Okay. Very good.
LV pressure is 120 by 8. normal. There's no gradient between LA and LV. Aortic pressure is 120 by 70. There's no gradient between LV and aorta.
Okay, very good. Yes. So from the pressure data, what are the abnormalities?
Pressure data, there is a gradient between the RV and the RV outflow.
Okay, RV inflow and outflow, that's a gradient, yes.
And moderate pulmonary artery hypertension.
Very good. Yes, what else?
Then left side pressures are normal.
Oh, yeah, okay. Is there an abnormal equalization of pressures?
Abnormal, like LV aortic systolic pressure equal to the LV systolic pressure equal to the RV inflow pressure.
Oh, yes, sir. So systolic pressure in the RV, LV and aorta are
equal.
So you should suspect that the patient may be having
TOF.
So whether the patient is having TOF, that should be in your mind. Okay, now go to the oximetry data.
Oximetry data, like SPC saturation is 60, IVC is 64, RA there is saturation is 61, RV 62, and pulmonary artery saturation is 70. There is a step up at the pulmonary artery level.
Okay.
In the left side, pulmonary capillary wedge, LA pressure, saturation is 99.
Not LA, pulmonary wedge saturation is 79.
Pulmonary artery wedge saturation is 99. LV is, there is a step down at LV.
Okay.
86. Aortic is 85.
Okay.
There is a step down at LV and a step up at pulmonary artery level.
So what?
It is TOF with the PDA. Hello.
Oh, PDA. Oh, okay. You can think of PDA, but in TOF, usually what will be the size of the PDA?
In TOF, it will be usually small.
Very small. So, can a small PDA give rise to pulmonary artery pressure elevation in a patient with TOF?
It is a post BT shunt TOF.
Is it BT shunt? Does it give rise to significant elevation of pressure?
Glenn, sir.
Yeah.
Glenn.
And why did you go to Glenn procedure? What is the shunt which can give rise to abnormal vascular response in a patient with tetralogy of Fallot?
Central shunts.
Central pressure shunts like?
Watterson
Yes, Watterson shunt or?
Ott shunt.
So this patient might have undergone a central shunt and subsequently the patient started developing pulmonary vascular resistance elevation. PVR resistance has gone up and that is why the patient is having this hemodynamic abnormality. Okay, very good. Yes, done well. Okay. Any takers? How many of you are there so that somebody else should also try?
Sir, around 100, 110 were there, sir.
But then nobody else is talking, only 3 or 4 people.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I get the name of some other person?
Yes, sir. Deepti.
Sunil, yourself, Sarojam, and see somebody who is other than already somebody has already discussed. That person should not discuss now. Somebody else.
Yes. Deepti is there. Deepti.
What is your name? Deepti. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Where is Deepti?
Yes, sir.
Where are you from?
From Fortis, Bangalore, sir.
Okay. Right. Okay. You discuss.
3-year-old female child. Pressure data first with left innominate vein A wave is around 14, B wave is around 14.
No, why do you use around 14? We should not use around
is 14. Yeah. And B wave is 14, which is high. And in SVC, A is 8.
It is mean is given a little below 13. Mean is 13. That's elevated. Okay, yes?
Yes, sir. SVC A is 8, V is 8, V is upper limit, and the mean is 6. Mean pressures are normal. Low SVC is again A is 8, V is 8, and mean is 6. There is a gradient between left innominate vein and SVC.
Okay, very good.
And RA pressures like A is 7, V is 8, and a mean of 6. There's no gradient between SVC and RA pressures are normal.
Okay, very good. Excellent.
RV, it is systolic.
No, there is a LA pressure.
Yes, sir. LA is A is 7, V is 8. V is more than A and mean is 6. LA pressures, mean is normal.
Okay. And also, what is the relationship between LA and RA pressures?
LA and RA pressures are normal, sir. So
they're equal. Everything A, B, mean, everything is equal. So obviously means there may be a
non-restrictive ASD kind of.
Unrestrictive, unobstructive ASD. Okay, right? Yes.
And RV pressures are systolic is 40 and diastolic is 6. RV systolic pressure is elevated. Very and good. RA and RV diastolic pressures are normal. So there is no gradient across tricuspid valve.
Oh, very good. Excellent, Deepti. Very good. Yes.
PA pressures systolic is 40, which is same as RV systolic pressure and which is elevated, and PA diastolic is 18, which is again elevated. Mean is 26.
Okay. Yes.
PA mean is elevated.
Yes.
And pulmonary capillary wedge A is 14, V is 14. Both are elevated.
Okay. Very
and
good.
mean is 13.
Okay.
And LV pressures systolic is 100 and diastolic is 6, and there is a gradient between the LA and LV because mean is around 13 and LV diastolic is 6.
Okay, that's as per our calculation, PA pulmonary artery bed pressure and LV, there is a diastolic gradient indicating a mitral valve.
Mitral valve stenosis.
Stenosis, very good, yes.
LV pressures and RV systolic pressure are different, so there is no VSD as such. And LV and aortic systolic pressures are equal, 100 and 100.
Okay.
So there is no gradient, and diastolic pressure of aorta is normal.
Okay, yes, right, yes.
So there is a gradient between left innominate vein and SVC. I'm suspecting an obstruction at the left innominate vein, sir.
Okay.
And RA and LA pressures are equal. That is a non-restrictive ASD.
Okay.
And RV pressures are elevated with elevation in PA pressures also. Can be a supracardiac TAPVC. But oximetry data we'll have to see. Left innominate vein is 64 at the upper level and the lower at a 62. That's 92. And so there is a step up at the lower in left innominate vein. High SVC is 92. Low SVC is 91. There is a step down at RA level because of 3%, which is not significant. And RA and RV saturations are equal. LA, PA, there is no difference, and LV is around 86.
No, don't use the word around. It is 86. Why are you using all around?
Sorry, sir.
No, you should not use one. It is 86. You should say 86. Don't use the word around. You also pressures also you said around and all. No, not around. So when you say left innominate vein pressure, you said around A is around 14. No, A is 14. Okay, right. Yes. Don't have the habit of saying about. Yes. Go ahead.
LV saturation is 86 and aortic saturation is 85. So there is equalization of saturation in all 4 chambers.
Okay.
With the higher saturations in the left innominate vein and the superior vena cava.
Okay.
So, supracardiac form of TAPVC.
Okay, very good. What else?
Obstructed.
With the gradient.
It's an obstruction. So you said the patient is having mitral stenosis. So what is your opinion? What do you want to say? Do you want to make any comments?
Because of the increased flow, because of the left to right shunt, right to left shunt, there is an increased flow across the mitral valve, so we are getting a gradient.
What is the left atrial pressure? What is the left?
Left atrial pressure is
It's normal.
13.
The left atrial pressure is given. It is A7.
Sorry. Yeah, 6.
So is there a gradient across the mitral valve?
No, sir.
Then why are you saying that there is obstruction in the mitral valve?
Sorry. There's no obstruction. Sorry, sir. Yeah.
Then why is the PA wedge elevated?
Sir?
Why PA wedge elevated? Is there an obstruction between the pulmonary vein and the left atrium? PA wedge is 13 mean.
PA wedge is 13, yeah.
Because of pulmonary vein obstruction. Because of it's obstructive type of TAPVC, that's why it is elevated.
Yeah. So what you are getting is the pulmonary venous pressure. It is a total anomalous pulmonary venous drainage, and so what you are getting is the pressure in the left innominate vein, which the
pulmonary veins are
draining. That pressure is reflected on the pulmonary artery wedge.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Are you able to understand?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
It is what you are getting is actually left innominate vein pressure, which is a pulmonary artery wedge pressure.
Yes, sir.
Left atrial pressure is already separately mentioned. Why there is a step down at the RA level? Yes. Yeah, here the whole quantity of blood is oxygenated blood is flowing to the superior vena cava, and when it is mixed with inferior vena cava blood, there is a desaturation, slight fall in the oxygen saturation. Dipti, can you tell me what are here? The pulmonary artery oxygen saturation is more than the aortic saturation. Why it is so?
That's because all the pulmonary veins are draining into the right system.
So what?
Because of preferential streaming of blood.
What is the preferential streaming? Describe that.
The more oxygenated blood will be going into the PA, and the lesser oxygenated blood is going into the aorta.
Why? That is right. That is obvious from the oxygen saturation data. But why? You have to give the explanation. You have to explain it. The blood coming from the superior vena cava usually preferentially flows to the right ventricle.
Right.
Whenever there is an ASD and the blood is flowing from right to left, preferentially the blood coming from the inferior vena cava will flow through the ASD across to the left atrium.
Left atrium. Yes.
Not the whole blood, but preferentially. So the amount of blood which is going to the left atrium will be slightly more coming from the inferior vena cava, and the blood which is flowing to the right ventricle will be preferentially more coming through the superior vena cava. So oxygen saturation in right ventricle can be slightly more than that of the left ventricle, and that is why the pulmonary artery has got a higher oxygen saturation. Can you tell me the conditions where there can be pulmonary artery oxygen saturation is more than aortic saturation?
Transposition physiology, sir.
Yes, transposition of great arteries, and also in one is standard transposition of great arteries. Other is
DORB with the subpulmonary VSD tossing bank.
Yeah. So these are the three conditions. Whenever you find that the pulmonary artery oxygen saturation is more than that the aortic saturation, there are only three conditions. One, the TAPC of the supracardiac variety. Two, transposition of greater arteries. Three, thoracic being anomaly. So these are the three conditions where you can get oxygen saturation in the pulmonary artery more than that of the aorta. Okay, shall we stop at this level? We have 2 hours. Nikhil?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Or do you want one more case? We can discuss one more case.
Yes, sir. One last case we can discuss, sir.
Okay, we will discuss one more case.
Yes. Yes. Arun, can you take over?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Sir, 14-year female presented with presenting with the RA pressure is A10, the A wave is 10 and B wave is 6, and RV is 100.
You have pattern A wave is?
A wave is taller than the V wave, and it is
Absolute value. Absolute value A is
absolute
normal.
elevated.
Upper limit of normal state, it is 10. So
Limit of normal 10. Then RA A wave is equal to RV diastolic pressure, so no gradient across the tricuspid valve.
Very good.
Then coming on to RV systolic pressure is 100 millimeters of mercury, and pulmonary artery systolic pressure is 25 millimeters of mercury. So there is a 75 millimeters of mercury gradient across the pulmonary valve.
Okay, very good. What about RV diastolic pressure?
RV end diastolic pressure is 10, that is slightly elevated, and then
what is the normal RV end diastolic pressure?
4 to 12.
What is the
4 to 12?
No, that is the LV end diastolic pressure. LV end diastolic pressure can go up to 11. 10 to 11, up to 10 to 11. Here it is usually it should be less than 8. So your trend is abnormal. Okay, yes.
8. PA, there is no. Then coming on to pulmonary artery wedge pressure. Pulmonary artery wedge pressure, A wave is 7 and V wave is 8. So that is normal.
Okay.
Then coming on to LA pressure is not given, so we can take the pulmonary artery wedge pressure as LA pressure. Then LV pressure is 100 by 7. It is diastolic pressure is equal to LA pressure, so it is no gradient across the mitral valve.
Okay.
Then aortic pressure is 100 by 70. Mean pressure is 80. Normal.
Okay, right. Yes.
Saturation.
So what is here?
So the abnormality in this pressure data is there is a pressure gradient across the pulmonary valve.
Okay, very good.
So that is the main abnormality and elevated RV and diastolic pressure.
RV and diastolic pressure. Yeah. RV and diastolic pressure is 10. It's elevated. Yeah. What is is there any abnormal equalization of pressures?
Equalization of pressure, yes, sir. RV pressure is equal to LV pressure equal to aortic pressure.
Okay.
So it is something like so all these three pressures are equal, sir.
Okay. But so you have to think of the possibility of TOF. Is there anything unusual for TOF in this pressure data?
Unusual is PA pressure.
Saturation.
Aortic saturation.
No, I'm not going to saturation. Pressure data.
Pressure data.
Pressure is elevated.
A wave prominent, sir. A wave prominent.
RV end-diastolic pressure is 10 and LV end-diastolic pressure is 7.
LV end pressure is 7.
So if there is an unrestricted VSD, usually end-diastolic pressures in RV and LV
equal.
So here the RV end-diastolic pressure is abnormally elevated. So you have to keep in mind when you go to the data. Even though there is a equalization of systolic pressure, so RV, LV and aorta. Okay, right? Yes.
Coming on to oximetry, SVC saturation is 69%, Then IVC is 72%. Then RA saturation is 71%. RV 73, PA is 73. So no significant step up at any of these levels.
Okay.
Then coming on to PA saturation 73, no step up. Coming on to pulmonary artery wedge 100%. And then LV saturation, which is 99%, and aortic saturation 98%. That is also normal. That last. Yeah. So the diagnosis is more likely to be a large non-restrictive VSD with PS.
What?
Sir, VSD PS.
Why did you say VSD PS?
1 minute. Sir, LV, RV, and LV
Isolated PS.
No. Isolated.
There's no step up, no step down.
Okay. Yeah, isolated PS.
Isolated PS.
So it's a case of
isolated valvular PS.
Isolated valvular pulmonary stenosis with some degree of, actually RV has started developing elevated end-diastole. You can also say that there may be some degree of RV complex failure.
RV.
LV end-diastole is gone up 10. So it's a pulmonary valvular stenosis with probable some degree of RV compliance. RV is not dilated, but that is why end-diastole pressure is elevated. Are you getting the point?
Yes, sir.
So even though there is an abnormal equalization, so abnormal equalization, you should not jump to the conclusion. You should look at all data available, then only conclude. So here, even though there is an abnormal equalization of systolic pressures between RV, LV, and aorta, and the anomaly that RV and diastolic pressure is significantly elevated compared to LV and diastolic pressure, and there is no evidence of right left shunt. So tetralogy of Fowler cannot be entertained. All right.
Yes.
Okay. So any doubts about things which I have told you today, so that we can start.
Sir, also we should interpret the pressure first and then oximetry, sir, or is there any thing like oximetry interpreted first and then pressure data, anything like that, sir?
If the examiner asks you to interpret oximetry data, you can do that first. Otherwise, start with pressure data, because whenever you are doing CAT procedures, you are first taking the pressure data.
Yes,
then
sir.
only you are taking the oximetry data. So always pressure data should be interpreted first, then oximetry data. But if the examiner asks you, you look at the oximetry data and what is your diagnosis? For example, in the previous case, where the oxygen saturation, the RA, LA, LV, and RV are all the same in pulmonary artery and aorta, everywhere it is same. That will make you that this patient is having total anomalous pulmonary venous drainage of the supracardiac. So
yes,
sometimes examiner may ask you, look at the oximetry data and what is your diagnosis. Then you can do that. Otherwise, start with pressure data and then interpret the oximetry data.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anything else?
Hello.
Sir, are there yeah, go on. Yeah,
yes.
Go on.
So when we take a mixed venous oxygenation while calculating systemic blood flow and only a single pulmonary saturation.
Now, if the patient is not having any shunt, then you can take pulmonary artery saturation as the mixed venous saturation.
Shunt at any level, sir?
There should not be any shunt at the right atrial level or VSD, no shunt, no, at the ventricular level, no shunt. Then you can take pulmonary artery as the mixed venous saturation.
Okay, sir. Thank
If
you.
the patient is having a VSD, then you can take right atrial oxygen saturation as the if the patient is having a PDA, then you can take the oxygen saturation in the ventricle as the mixed venous oxygen saturation. If the patient is not having any step up at the RA level, then the problem is a VSD, then RA can be taken as the mixed venous oxygen saturation. If the patient is having ASD, you have to calculate the mixed venous oxygen saturation by 3 SVC plus 1 IVC divided by 4. So in a person without shunt, you can take PA oxygen saturation as the mixed venous oxygen saturation. Is it clear?
Sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other doubt?
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I think you crashed the records of number of participants. We were around 110-15. Sir, next week should we continue this ECG and cath tracings also we wanted to discuss, sir?
Tracing we can take that. Or
Yes.
We have not discussed any multivalvular heart disease because that is something which can be kept in the examination.
Yes, sir. Sir, as a case presentation you are asking, sir?
Yeah, we should have a multivalvular case discussion.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Especially how to assess the relative severity of the lesion and all extremely important. The examiner will ask you questions on that.
Yes, sir. Next week we are having, sir, the presenter adult only, sir. Adult case only, sir. So will the coming Thursday we can discuss, sir?
Okay, coming this Thursday we can discuss. That is all right.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Then Sunday, sir, we will see, sir. If any presenter is there, I will tell, sir, accordingly, sir.
Okay, Thursday, what is the time?
Thursday, sir, same 7:30 will take, sir.
Okay, 7:30. So, okay. So we'll have a discussion. We'll have a case presentation on Thursday.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for taking your time, sir. People are really liking your classes, sir. There. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, right. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.